Good morning. We are here with Emily Cook. She is here to talk to us about Build Your Library, which I stumbled upon because I love Charlotte Mason. I love living books, and I saw her curriculum online and thought, this is all of that. So I asked her if she would come and share her curriculum with us, and she said yes. So here she is. And if you have any questions, I think she'll allow us to ask those at the end. But for right now, welcome, Emily, and thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, my name is Emily Cook, and I am the author and the creator of Build Your Library curriculum. And today I'm going to be taking you on a tour of one of our instructor guides. So first, I want to give you guys a little background about myself and Build Your Library. I am a veteran homeschooling mother of 4 children, 3 of whom I've graduated from homeschooling high school. My 2 oldest are in college right now. One is a senior and one is a sophomore. My other graduate is teaching himself art and graphic design. My youngest is going to be a 7th grader this year, so I'm almost done. We've always homeschooled, and so we're heading into, I think it's our 19th year. I developed Build Your Library based on what I learned from teaching my own 4 kids with a living books education. Build Your Library is a Charlotte Mason inspired secular literature-based homeschool curriculum. I call it Charlotte Mason inspired because, like any methodology, I take the tenets that work for me and for my family, like copywork, dictation, narration, short lessons, and rich literature, and then just discard what doesn't work. I consider myself to be an eclectic homeschooler, and my curriculum will reflect that. For example, The Well-Trained Mind was a very foundational text for me in the early days of our homeschooling, and I love the concept of a 4-year history rotation, which you will see reflected in the way I structure our levels. Build Your Library is a K-12 program covering everything but phonics and math. We sell both full year level programs as well as topical unit studies and our Read Aloud Book Club Packs, which is a monthly family read aloud book with a mini unit study sent to your home each month. I created Build Your Library back in 2012, so about 9 years ago, because I was incredibly frustrated that I could not find a curriculum that would work for my family. You see, I'd fallen head over heels in love with the idea of a literature-based Charlotte Mason approach, but anything I could find that was labeled as Charlotte Mason was very religious in nature, as were every other literature-based curriculum on the market at that time. So for a while, I would just begrudgingly buy it anyway and tweak it to where we could comfortably use it. But it was just so much work on my end that I eventually gave up and just started to write my own lesson plans instead. I knew by then exactly what I wanted our lessons to look like and how I wanted them to be structured. So I took on that task of writing it myself. I realized that I couldn't be the only person frustratedly searching for a secular literature-based curriculum, so I released levels 1 and 5 over the summer of 2012, and the rest is history. I can honestly say I never expected it to grow as much as it has. It's grown beyond my wildest expectations. And something that I don't think a lot of people realize is that it's basically just me and my husband behind the scenes. I'm the main content creator. My husband does the back end tech stuff, and my kids help out here and there as well. Like my eldest daughter writes for our blog and she assists with the editing. My second oldest daughter is our resident artist and does all of the timeline figures and maps and bookmarks and things. My son is learning to help out on back end like technology things like updating book lists and stuff. So it's really a family business. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of what each level includes, I just want to take a minute and discuss the methodology behind Build Your Library. I think sometimes literature-based curriculum can look overly simple. Isn't it just a glorified book list? But there's so much more going on than just a reading list and a schedule. With Build Your Library, you do get a schedule with a reading list, of course, but the meat of this curriculum is in learning how to read and discuss. This is not a hands-off program for you as a parent. In levels 0 through 8, it's assumed that the books listed as literature are family reading, meant to either be read aloud by you or maybe listened to as a family on audiobook. The readers are independent reading, and this curriculum will require you to read along with your children and have big, juicy conversations about the books. When you purchase the lesson plans, you'll receive a PDF file that you can then download to your computer or tablet, as well as get it printed if you prefer to have a paper copy. The lessons are very open and go, as well as being very flexible. I'm gonna share my screen now so you guys can see the level 1 curriculum. Okay, so today we're gonna be doing a tour of level 1. So you should be able to see the cover now. So let me just scroll down a bit. So this is level 1, the ancient world. This level is geared toward ages 6 to 8. And the first thing you'll notice is that though it is called level 1, it isn't necessarily grade 1. Our levels are aimed at a range of ages because they cover content subjects like literature, history, geography, science. They're flexible age-wise. So you will, of course, still need to add math and reading instruction at your child's grade level. But the best part of the flexibleness of our levels is that they make teaching multiple students together a breeze. So for example, if you have a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old, you can comfortably teach all 3 together with level 1. Just add math and phonics at their age level, and you're good to go. So let's start at the beginning. On the intro page here, you can see our basic table of contents. Just a quick glance. This shows you where you can find everything in the instructor guide, from book lists to lesson plans, activity pages, and so forth. Next, we come to the book list. Every single level and unit study comes with a list of required reading. These are the books that the lesson plans are based upon. Level 1's focus is ancient history, so that is what the history section is going to reflect. These are all great nonfiction titles that will inspire and excite your children as they learn about the world. I always list the books in order of use, and I make a note as to which books are spines, as well as what week each book will be read. This helps you to know when you need to purchase things. So which books you should purchase up front at the beginning of the year, and which books you can wait a little while to buy later on. So just to clarify, a spine book is a foundational text. These will be used over the course of the whole year, sometimes half a year, usually longer than you would be able to borrow it from the library. So those are the books you're definitely going to want to purchase. In level 1, there are a total of 10 spine books. So these include History Quest Early Times, the Usborne Internet-linked World History Encyclopedia, A Child Through Time, World Mythology for Children, National Geographic Book of Poetry, The Nature Connection, Natural World, Heroes of the Environment, and the 2 art books, 13 Artists Children Should Know and 13 Art Techniques that Children Should Know. So to buy all of these brand new will run you around $160-ish. So if you need to save on cash, I highly recommend looking for people selling their old books in our Build Your Library Facebook groups, as well as stalking your favorite local used bookstore for deals. There are also great discount bookstores online like Book Outlet and Thrift Books, where you can save a ton of money on new books. Sorry, new and used books. You can try to source as many of the rest of the books as you can from your local library. I truly believe you can give your children a living books education without spending a ton of money. So right away from this book list, you can see what subjects will be covered in level 1. We have history, with a focus on the ancient world, world mythology, poetry, literature, nature science, and art. You might notice that there are no independent readers scheduled. Those don't begin until level 3. In levels 1 and 2, children's reading levels are all over the map. Some 8-year-olds are still working on their phonics skills, and some 6-year-olds are reading at a 5th grade reading level. So rather than include several different lists at different levels, I leave it to you to assign reading to your children. I do have a book list on our website divided by reading level that compare with levels 1 and 2, or you can just let your children choose their own reading material as they gain proficiency in their reading skills. I also include a list of movies and documentaries that would pair well with the lessons. They are listed here at the front of the guide, but they're also listed in the weeks in which they're recommended. Again, I list when you might need them alongside the title for ease of use. These are all completely optional. If your child does not enjoy watching documentaries or is just too antsy to sit through a movie, these are totally skippable. But if you wanted something more, I've included it for you here. Next, we have a more in-depth table of contents. This time, I give you a sort of at a glance of the whole year. It's organized by history texts, literature selections, science, and history topics. This is actually a brand new feature that I've been adding as I write the updates for each level. It's something that has been frequently requested, and I've discovered that I really like how helpful it is both to me as I'm writing the lesson plans, as well as it is to you as you plan ahead. For the record, I did used to use notebooks and just had notebook after notebook on my desk to help me organize everything. So this has actually proved to be way more efficient and helpful for me. And it uses a lot less paper. So as you can see, it shows what you'll be reading and learning each week, the history reading and topic, the literature selection, and the science topic. It's a great way to see the scope and sequence of the full year. Now we come to our narration cards. Narration is really the backbone of the Charlotte Mason philosophy. At its core, narration is simply telling back what you read or what you heard. It's a great way to sharpen your listening skills. Narration takes the place of reading comprehension and tests. You no longer need a list of questions to see if your child was listening or focusing on what they read. It's very easy to do. You just read a passage to your child and then ask them to tell it back in their own words. Charlotte Mason did not begin narrations until a child was at least 6 years old. So for a very young child, this sort of just retelling is enough. Read a short story or a brief excerpt from a longer story, and then ask the child to tell back what they heard. A few short sentences is enough for you to gauge if they were listening and if they were able to comprehend the story. For a child who is new to the idea of narration, the first few times they might need some assistance. Maybe ask them about a specific part of the story or write a list of key words from the reading on a whiteboard to help them to stay focused. It's important to remind them to use their own words. Narration is not the same thing as memorizing a story. They need to learn to take something and make it their own. To make introducing this concept of narration easy and fun, I've included a set of narration cards with every level of Build Your Library curriculum. Level 1 comes with the 6 to 8 set of narration cards that you see here. Because these are aimed at younger learners, these are activities that do not require much writing. They offer new and different ways to interact with the literature that you're reading together as a family. In levels 1 and 2, the narration cards pair with the literature that you're reading together. But in levels 3 and up, they pair with the independent reading. The rest of this section gives some background for things that we'll be doing over the course of the year: copy work, memory work, timelines, and etc. I'll address all of those in a minute as we scroll through the lesson plans. Each week is laid out with an at-a-glance grid, so you can quickly see what books you're going to need for the week. In week 1, you can see that we'll be reading about history, how history works, and learning about archaeology. You'll start the first read aloud, The Tale of Despereaux. You'll be reading some poetry on days 2 and 4. Nature study in week 1 will be a sort of introduction, and then we begin with a focus on what's in your own backyard. In art, you'll be creating a family tree project, and in language arts, you always see that copywork is listed 3 days out of the week, and narration is 2 days per week. After the grid, each day is laid out for you in more detail. There are activities for history, like interviewing an older family or friend to learn more about what their lives were like in the near past. I offer an optional book that you might enjoy adding to your reading pile over the week, and I plug our prehistory unit if your child becomes really interested in that topic. I also include vocabulary, discussion questions for the read aloud, copy work taken from the reading, memory work, and science. I want to talk a bit about the vocabulary, as I see this topic come up frequently. The vocabulary is there for your benefit more than your child's. If they ask about what a word means, and it happens to be defined here for you, that just saves you time. I think it's better to learn vocabulary in context. In the elementary years, it's more about exposure. You don't need to study these words with your children. Just read the story to them. They'll pick up new words by hearing them used in context. But if your child asks, you have them right here for you with the definitions all laid out. Once your child is older, you can absolutely study the vocabulary. Beginning in level 5, I include a word study graphic organizer in the appendix that you can use to assist your vocabulary studies. I recommend only doing a few words per week though, not the whole vocabulary list each day. I encourage my children to choose their own words to include as well. This gives them some ownership of the assignment and they can create their own sort of dictionary of interesting words that they've come across in their reading. I do include some discussion questions to go along with the read aloud. As I said before, in levels 1 and 2, you're pairing the narration cards with the literature reading. So you could just use the narration card assignments and skip the discussion questions. But if you want some guidance on what to talk about after the reading, you can use these questions as a way to foster discussion. I don't always discuss every reading we do though, just as I don't require narration with every reading assignment. There are days that we just close the book when we're through and move on to the next thing. And just as often we have days where we end up talking for an hour because a book just gets us into an animated discussion. Narration is assigned on days 2 and 4, so you could plan to just use the cards on those days and not include discussion. In every full year level, except for 0, I include copywork and dictation assignments each week. In levels 1 through 4, I assign copywork 3 days per week on days 1, 3, and 5. Copywork is a very simple assignment in the early levels. It's short because we want the child to give their best effort. Giving too long of a passage will lead to sloppy work because they become tired. The passages grow longer with age and ability. If you're using this level with an older student, you could always just add another sentence to give them more to work with. Because the copywork is taken from that day's literature reading, it's easy to expand it for an older child. So why bother with copywork at all? Why not just let them learn how to write their letters and then write their own stories and sentences? Copywork teaches your child what good writing looks like. It fosters memory and fine motor skills, and it supports executive function by engaging their attention and focus. You can even use copywork to teach basic mechanics like punctuation and spelling, as well as parts of speech and literary devices. For example, in the passage on day 1 here, it says, "They are obscenely large ears." We might discuss what the word obscenely means. We might discuss parts of speech. They is a pronoun, ears is a noun. We could talk about how sentences always begin with a capital letter and always end with a period. Now, I wouldn't teach all of that with this one passage, but you could certainly pick one thing to point out in every copywork passage. 3 passages per week, 36 weeks, gives you plenty of time to cover a wide range of topics. And because these sentences are taken from the books that they're reading and enjoying, the material sticks. They're more likely to remember when it has to do with something they enjoy and care about. Each level, except for 0, also includes memory work assignments. In the younger levels, those are all taken from the book of poetry that you'll be reading that year. So in level 1, the poetry, which is covered twice a week most weeks, is from the National Geographic book of nature poetry, which ties into the science that is being studied in level 1, which is a year of nature study science. Memory work is a great way to help your child work on their diction and public speaking skills. I offer my children the chance to perform for family members or will make a recording, and it's a great way to see how they grow and change over the course of the school year. And as I said, the science in level 1 is a nature study focus, using the nature connection as your main spine for the year. You'll learn about the flora and fauna in your neck of the woods and hone your observational skills as you really look deeply at the world around you. Because this is a nature study course, in this level, a big part of your work will take place outdoors. If you live in an area that doesn't foster this, maybe you live in an apartment and don't have a backyard, or you live in an area where the climate's too cold to be outside much during the school year, or maybe you live in a city and you don't have a lot of nature space nearby, you can still absolutely glean a lot from the books scheduled throughout the year. The One Small Square series in particular is very well done. At the very least, if this is your situation, you can always plan on 1 day per week to go somewhere outdoors, a hiking trail or a public park. Art is also scheduled over 1 to 2 days per week. In this level, you are studying different artists and art techniques, and there are some simple art projects included to help your child learn more about art and color theory and different techniques. In week 1, you can see that the art coordinates with what you've been studying in history as you work on a family tree project. As with any content subject you're studying at this level, it's more about exposure. Getting acquainted with new ideas and beauty and heroes and villains. It's okay if your child cannot recall dates and names or any of that at this age. That isn't the intent or the purpose of this curriculum. Charlotte Mason said we should offer our children a feast of ideas, and that is what Build Your Library is. It is a feast. One of the best things about it is the flexibility. You can just use the parts that work for you and discard what doesn't. Maybe your child is a perfectionist and becomes frustrated by the art projects. Feel free to just do the readings instead. Maybe a book isn't working for your child. You can skip it. You use the curriculum. You do not let the curriculum rule over your homeschool. Now let's jump ahead to week 3. Where you can see that we have our first map activity. Okay. These, again, are meant to be a kind of exposure to the world for your child. They don't need to memorize the names of the places, but it gives them a better understanding of how big the world is and helps them to place where things are happening in the reading. I highly recommend that in addition to the maps included in the readings and the blank map activity pages, you should have either a large wall map or a globe at hand as you study history. So back to the curriculum. In this assignment, your child will learn about the Fertile Crescent, what it is, where it can be found on a map. In the assignment, they're coloring in a blank map and then comparing it to your world map. Sometimes a map assignment would just be to go find the place you're reading on your world map. I've made a lot of effort to coordinate the books that you'll be reading over the year so that everything flows and fits together. I visualize it as a puzzle as I put it together. Each book fits and complements the others. So while you're reading about Mesopotamia and history, you'll be reading some Mesopotamian mythology, as well as a riveting historical fiction novel set in that place and time. But that does not mean that all the readings are going to line up with history. I do adore historical fiction, that's true, but there are so many different genres to choose from. I want to help you to expose your children to a wide and wonderful world of ideas. At this age, kids are still figuring out their reading tastes, so it's important to offer them a variety of styles of storytelling. While studying the ancient world, you'll certainly read some books set in that time period, but you'll also read fantasy like The Tale of Despereaux and classics like The House at Pooh Corner. Now let's look back at the lesson plans. Along with the reading schedule and lessons for those readings, I've included printable activity pages. So let me just scroll down to the bottom here. Okay, there we go. So here's the activity pages. I've included printable activity pages to help you get the most out of the year's studies. These include research projects, coloring pages, graphic organizers, and map work. There are also additional activity pages for science, timeline figures for your child to place on their timeline, whether it's a big wall timeline, a poster, or even a timeline notebook. We'll scroll through those quick so you can see what that looks like. So this is what the map work looks like. Sometimes there are words for them to trace. And the timeline figures that they can cut out and color and then paste onto their timeline. We've been working on redesigning these as I go through the updates. These are all drawn by my daughter. She's an art major in college right now. And then we come to the appendix, where I've included a blank weekly grid and a daily list, as well as a huge list of optional reading material. And that is what you get in a full year lesson plan. So now I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have about our products.
Well, I have a question, Emily.
Mhm.
Actually, I have several. So first of all, thank you. That looks so super fun. If I have a wide age range of kids, like I've got my youngest is 6 and my oldest is 16, is there a way for me to do the same subject with all of them, or would I have to do different levels?
Sometimes, yes, you could. We have, like, for example, level 0 is world geography, which is covered again in level 7. So that's one way to be able to study the same material, but just at different levels. Same thing with world history. You come to world history in levels 1 through 4, and then again, you'll study it in level 8 and levels 10 and 11. So you can kind of pair things together that way.
Perfect. So I have another question. It's about poetry memorization. So can you just kind of tell me how you do that with your family, how that looks day in and day out?
Sure. Okay. So when we first come to a poem that we're going to be learning, I read it to them 3 times in a row, usually like in the same sitting. We'll read it 3 times, and then I'll have them read it. If they can read, I'll have them read it to me. If they don't know how to read yet, we like back and forth. Like I'll read a line and have them repeat it back to me, and we'll play like that for a while. And we do that every day for a little while until they start to become familiar with it. Sometimes we'll do it as copywork. So maybe once a week, I'll have them copy a stanza so that they add that to their copywork rotation. I find that copying the poem really helps a lot, and just getting it in their mind and helping them like say the words over and over as they're writing it out. So usually that's how we do it. I'll read it and then have them either read or recite it back to me each day. And then usually by the end of the week to 3-week period that we're working on it, they have it down.
Perfect. I just know that a lot of times it helps to hear how families do that. So thanks for sharing. And I'll quit asking
Sure.
questions for a minute in case anyone else has a question.
So thank you, Emily. I am super excited. We're doing level 7 this year with my youngest, who's also in 7th grade. But I'm curious, I just stumbled on your unit studies, and can I have enough time to squeeze one of those in, or is that going to be just too much?
No. Is there one you're interested in looking at?
Well, I was looking at the Christmas and the Thanksgiving. I feel like I always, we do our family traditions, but I kind of miss, what they get in public school with the very, very specific, this is Thanksgiving, this is, Christmas. So I love the Christmas around the world. I did that with my older one. I haven't done that with him yet. So, or holidays around the world. But so I'm just wondering though, because we've started with the charting, the mapping, which is awesome. We're super excited about all of those books, which I was not familiar with. So I'm super excited about that, but I'm just wondering, can I squeeze those in with Thanksgiving coming so soon?
Yeah, I'm just going to show you quick if you wanted to look at the history of Thanksgiving unit. So yeah, I would say the best way to do a unit study is to just take a break from whatever your regular routine is to fit it in, because you could add it into your daily rotation, but I find it overwhelming sometimes for kids to try to do their regular studies plus another study entirely. So for example, if I were to do this during the year, I would just drop everything for November and just focus on this unit. So you can see like each week is laid out very similarly to what the full year looks like. So you get your grid with what your reading assignments are and what your activities are, and then everything's laid out each day for you to do. And then I will scroll down quick so you can see what the activity pages look like. So here you have like the timeline, a map, coloring pages, and that sort of thing. So it's very similarly laid out. It's just in a much smaller and more contained study. Okay.
I love those, Emily. Thank you for creating those.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Hi, Emily. I sure enjoyed your presentation today. I haven't used that curriculum myself, but I know people who have. And I just wanted to compliment you on taking charge of this as you homeschooled your kids and turning it into something that's reproducible for the rest of us and our families. It's a lot of work. You don't get credit for that anywhere else, but we'll give you credit for it. So
Thank
thank
you
you
so
for your
much.
time and for putting this together. It looks really awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate the secular nature of it because our homeschool allotment can't be used on religious curriculum. And so this gives our families an option if they would like to do something Charlotte Mason, that they can use their allotment to purchase. And I just want to remind families that if you do, you can't have it printed and pay for that with your allotment, but you can definitely buy a printer and you can buy ink and you can buy paper and be reimbursed for all of that. So yeah, thanks for giving us an option we can purchase. And in the chat, we have a sponsor teacher who says she has families who absolutely love this curriculum. So everybody seems to love this curriculum. Emily, good work. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Well, if there are no more questions, I'm just going to thank Emily one more time, both for creating this curriculum and for taking time out of your day and your week to come share it with us. And for the rest of you, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful day.